Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today, we have a really awesome review for you from Channel First. We're going to be reviewing the Sinn 556IB. I for indices and B for blue. So now this is a watch that we got a little sneak peek at during my Watch Buys Roadshow coverage. And honestly, this is a watch that has just continued to impress me since I've owned it. Normally, I try to get these reviews, rather quickly from when I first get the watch, within the first month or two, just because, of course, I want to get it before you see any wear and tear on it. I want to get it filmed. Now, for this particular piece, I think it's kind of nice that it did take me a while to get this review together because it's just given me a little bit more time to form, some more fine opinions, I would say, about the piece that are just, I think, very important to cover, more than just on the outer face of the watch, because I feel like everybody likes the look, everybody likes the aesthetic, everybody knows the build quality is good, with Sinn. But I think there's some other fine points that we'll touch on during this review with a little bit more depth as far as owning this particular timepiece and owning a Sinn in general. Now, a little bit about the brand. Sinn was founded back in 1961. They're a brand that's made in Germany. They're definitely a well-respected mid-tier German brand. And when I say mid-tier, I don't mean that in a bad way. I think they're pretty well established as not being entry-level because of their designs, their lineage, the execution. It's all very nice and definitely fits in the real mid-tier, not just, what some would consider the mid-tier based off of whatever watch tiering system that they get. I think this is an official mid-tier brand, all right, and in the best of ways. So they're definitely a well-respected brand, and they were founded by a flight instructor and pilot, Helmut Sinn. Now, this particular watch, of course, is a pilot's watch at its roots. A couple of key common characteristics in design language when you're looking for a pilot's watch is you're going to be looking for that balance of legibility and functionality, which I think you can clearly see that is something that is here in Sinn and pretty much in their whole lineup, not just the 556 line, but I think it's really nice to have it in their 556 line because this is technically their entry-level line, but you can get those same aesthetics and build quality, of course, at a more attainable price point, which is really great. Now, speaking of price, I'm in the US here in the United States, and pretty much the best place you can buy these you can buy them directly from Watch Buys. This particular model you can get for $1470. So just shy of $1,500. It has 2-day air delivery included, of course, within the US. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. Okay. Now, in hand, it definitely is a substantial piece. The specs did fly across the screen there in the beginning and the intro, but I think this, again, is a real sweet spot right there at 38.5 millimeters. So 38.5 with an 11 millimeter height. I think just really kind of the magic numbers right now for me and what I look for when I'm looking for an everyday watch. And I don't have a huge wrist. I don't have a small wrist. I have a 7¼ inch wrist. I'd say it's probably on the larger side of average. But, there was a time when I was really afraid to wear anything in the 38 millimeter range, anything below 40, until I started kind of learning more about watches and, of course, about proportions, and that there are just so many more numbers that come into play when it comes to how a watch will fit. It's not just all about the diameter. There's definitely, it does have to do with the shape, the profile, everything here. And, without going too much into detail, I think this has really got it as far as design goes and really playing to that kind of magic proportion that I think look great on any wrist. Now, the crystal is a sapphire, of course, flat with a double double AR coating, inner and outer. And I think, of course, with the blue, it's nice because it helps hide that AR coating even more. When you have a black dial, especially a matte black dial, it really makes the AR coating sometimes stand out. With a blue dial, I think it's nice because it hides it, because the dial's already blue. So if there's a blue tint to it, you don't really notice it, and it helps it disappear. So really helps that, you know, even with the flat sapphire and these hot studio lights, you can see that it almost feels like you can just reach right into that dial and touch it there. So it has this really nice fixed bezel with a nice little chamfer there, not super sharp or anything. It's a pretty soft chamfer, but it does give the watch, you know, of course, those angular industrial looks. And then you have that signed Sinn crown there, screw down crown, which helps it have an amazing 200 meters water resistance. So that's really awesome that just in an everyday watch, you know, a pilot's watch, you can actually have a watch that's extremely capable as well, which is really awesome to see. So the movement, if we take a look back here, is actually a really nicely done ETA 2824. So if I can get the camera to focus on it there, beautifully finished. That nice Sinn classic gold rotor there. You're gonna have the blued screws. Really nice finishing there. Not sure if this is a top grade or an elaborate that's just been dressed up, but man, this thing looks great and is keeping amazing time. So really nicely done there. Sinn do use both Sellita and ETA movements. For the 556 though, they instead of, you know, like a lot of brands will say, you know, whatever's available is what we'll use. Sinn actually assigns particular movements per their watches. So any 556 will be running, or at least any modern 556 will be running off of the 2824 from ETA. And then, you know, another watch like the 104 is going to be using a Sellita SW200. So that's just something to note. So if that means anything to you, you know, do with it what you will. They're pretty much equals anyway, and you can see that in the fact that many brands will consider them very much quite interchangeable. But it is nice to always have the original in there, and gives you a little bit of a lineage heritage, I guess. At this point, ETA is kind of a monster. And it's a desirable thing because, of course, they got less available. Now they're more available, and you're starting to see them filter back in, and brands are starting to put ETA movements back in their watches, which is nice to see. Now, as far as the main aesthetics, right, is going to be that dial. I mean, so we have the baton style indices, they're all applied, that blue sunray dial, we have polished hands, of course, and this super luminova on there does shine quite nicely in the dark. We'll get to that in the Lume shot. Now, I did mention that this is 200 meters water resistance, you know, and it even has a see-through case back. So that is impressive, guys. When you can make something water resistant but then still have a display case back, that means just everything is just that much better engineered and better executed, because you have a display case back. I mean, there's companies that, you know, they'll put a stinking solid case back for a watch that's 100 meters water resistance, just to kind of save them a little bit of time and development and testing. So it's really nice that Sinn are able to offer you 200 meters of water resistance and still have that beautiful display case back, so you can see the mechanics of the watch. And let's face it, in this day and age, that's kind of part of the allure, I should say, of owning a mechanical watch, is seeing the mechanics in there and knowing what's beating away on your wrist. So, you know what? Let's also talk about the lugs. We got 20 millimeter lugs, and they are drilled, which is nice, which makes strap changes a real breeze on here. This one I've actually swapped on and off of a couple of different straps, and I gotta say, really just a pleasure. The nice thing is that it's not a super tall watch, of course, at 11 millimeters. So you can throw it on a NATO, you can throw it you know, on any type of strap, really, leather, nylon. This is just such a versatile piece. And then if you think about the other models in the line, just, you know, the black dial models, then they just get even more versatile from there. So one of the nice things, of course, all solid links, solid end links, really great articulation, nice and comfortable. You know, the aesthetic wise, you know, I'm not huge on kind of 5-link bands normally, but I mean, I'm a big Jubilee fan, but you know, if I had to choose, I normally wouldn't necessarily pick something like this, but this fine link bracelet is just that. It is very finely executed and impressive, because as thin as that is, if you take a look right there, guys, those are screw pins. So that's just insane that Sinn is at a level where they're executing watches with such small, thin, comfortable links that are actually screw pins. It would have been really easy to do a push pin, a pin and collar system, something like that, but no, Sinn went the extra mile, and that's something that you'll find all over this watch. Now look at this clasp for a minute there. It is not a bargain bin clasp that you'll see on a bunch of other watches. This is so unique, so beautiful. Look at the inside. See how smooth that is? So that's gonna be the part that goes up against your wrist. Everything is just engineered, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't think of when they think of Sinn. You know, they see the minimalist design, but they don't realize that there's so much engineering and design that go into it, apart from the aesthetic and in the execution. That's where the design for me really shines. So let's go ahead and get this on wrist. So as you can see, wears just beautifully on my 7 1/4 inch wrist there. Trying to get the kind of far out shot to give you just a little bit more idea of the scale on a human being, and not just a super zoomed in wrist shot there, where everything's generally going to look a bit bigger than it's going to see or wear in real life. So it just wears really beautifully, you know, on wrist. Classic proportions, super comfortable, you know, but it still retains a substantial wrist presence, which is really nice. So I gotta say, on wrist, really a crowd pleaser. Of course, that bracelet, very, very comfortable. The clasp is extremely comfortable as well, and just really finely designed. And then you have that nice signed link there at the butterfly. So really nice on wrist, great angle here. You can see that it rides well. That nice case back is rounded off, so it gives you nice articulation. I like to wear my watches a little bit further down the wrist than I guess it's classically where they would be worn above the wrist bone. I like to wear them a little bit looser and a little bit lower on the wrist, and you know, that's what makes a comfortable bracelet that much more important to me. And of course, getting everything sized and dialed in, and that's definitely not an issue that I've had with this watch. As you can see, the finishing there, although very simple, it's definitely executed to a very fine standard. You know, I wouldn't say luxury level or anything like that, but this is, you know, more on the premium side, I'd say, of mid-tier. There are a couple of brands that sneak into the mid-tier ranks by just kind of sheer popularity and not necessarily execution. So I think Sinn's one of those watch brands that have really, you know, they've earned their chops the right way. There's people that love these watches. They talk about them, they buy them, they show them off because they love them so much. Sinn hasn't been paying, you know, Travolta or any actors out there to be brand ambassadors, you know, David Beckham, to come wear these watches to make you think they're cool. You think they're cool because you know that people who care about watches will wear these. People with much more expensive watches will wear them, and people with less expensive watches will save up and buy them as kind of their attainable grails. So on wrist, really nice. Let's go ahead and get a Lume shot. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights. As you can see, really nicely done there with the Lume. This, again, this isn't a dive watch or anything like that. It's a pilot's watch, so it doesn't need to have, you know, crazy out there Lume or anything like that. And of course, it does have, you know, fairly thin baton indices, and they do shine quite well. So let's go ahead and get some low light transition for you, because let's face it, these hot studio lights don't always tell the true story of what this watch is going to look like in ownership. Because you're not always going to be outside in direct sunlight, which is what these studio lights are, you know, effectively imitating. So you can see here, walking in and out from a building, you know, out to your car, inside your house. You can see really nicely how well this watch just plays with the light from the dial to the fine fully brushed case and bracelet. So really nice, quite impressive. Let's go ahead and get the color saturation back leveled out there. Let the camera do its thing while I give you some of my final thoughts. Now, of course, there are other model variants out there, and I do own one now. I actually picked up the A dial, which I will quickly bring into frame for you. This is kind of, I guess you could say, the watch that started it all. We'll scoot that over and get this in. A little sneaky move on my part. So, you know, everybody pretty much knows these watches for this model here, the Arabic numerals model, the 556 Alpha or 556A. The nice thing is that these watches, they've been around. This isn't something that it was just a quick design exercise. This is something where the watch was designed, executed, and constantly refined. And kind of in that vein of their made in Germany chops, you can think of something like a Porsche 911. They've been around forever, and they've made small tweaks and increments just to make them that much better. And they still might look like an older 911, but underneath there, and the closer you look, the more you see all these outstanding new features. And that's something that I feel like Sinn has done here with the 556 line. You'll see older Sinns from the 90s that look the same. You think they're the same, and then you take a look at the way the bracelets connect and this and that. They're less robust. And then you take a look at one now and you just see these great features. And, you know, real quick, look at that, the torque screw connectors there on that beautiful signature H-Link bracelet. I mean, doesn't get much better than that, guys. Definitely a tool watch in every sense of the word, and extremely versatile. So that's something that I definitely want to bring to light for the brand Sinn. This is not about fanboying this brand. They're expensive. I think what they charge for them is probably about what they're worth. You're not getting a lot of bang per buck. This isn't some big bargain that you're getting when you're picking up a Sinn. You're buying a nice watch and you're paying nice watch money for it. But you can do it confidently because the money that you're paying isn't for the name. It's not for the recognition, although their Sinns are very recognizable watches at this point. you're really paying for something that they've earned their own merits for the watches. The watches are good, so the brand has a good name, and there's no other way around it. There's not a big historical hoo-ha, you know, something they didn't take these to the moon. You know, there's no sales pitch outside of, if you want a nice watch, buy these watches because these are nice. So, you know, with that said, you know, real quickly, I guess we could cover some comparable models. They're tough to find because this is 200 meters water resistance. There's not a lot out there that's 200-meter water resistant. That in terms of aesthetics, you know, of being kind of a dressed up pilot or field watch, you know, that are going to be out there. I'd say, again, on the higher end, probably Rolex Explorer. On the lower end, Seiko Alpinist. That's 200 meters water resistance. Also, the Monta Triumph is comparable price-wise, pretty close. Slightly less water resistant, but to me, the Monta definitely has a finer fit and finish than Sinn does. Sinn definitely very excellent for what they're trying to do. They're executing it perfectly, but what they're trying to do is very minimal, very sparse, very utilitarian, and that's not something that that Monta's trying to do as far as their aesthetic. They're definitely trying to be more luxury. I'd say this is being more of a tool watch. You know, these are watches that they're built with a purpose in mind, and they do it, you know, perfectly, and you don't need to add a bunch of micro bevels or anything like that to a watch like this. And I think it'd be silly if Sinn did that. This is their strong suit. This is what they do. You know, a beautiful, fully brushed case, simplistic dial that's infinitely readable and balanced and symmetrical, and it's just a gorgeous piece. Bottom line, super versatile piece that can really fit in any collection of quality timepieces, or it can sit at the top of a collection of affordable timepieces. So awesome piece, guys, and I'm looking forward to bringing you guys the review of the Sinn 556A in the near future, because I will be covering future segments about pilot watches and some affordable options and kind of the tiers within that affordable range. And I think Sinn definitely sit kind of atop the nicer pilot watches that are out there, that are quite affordable, you know, before you start paying big bucks for IWC or something like that. I think you can get something pretty iconic with a Sinn watch as well. So hey, if you guys like the video, please do hit like. If you haven't already, please do hit subscribe for more content just like this. Make sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments below. It means a lot. Thanks, guys. Bye.